You are now listening to the first 7 minutes of Chapter 1 of Fanny the Fairy by APL, available exclusively on scriptoriumquest.com. Joe sat by the kitchen window relishing his lemonade. His gaze remained fixed on the unassuming house numbered 17. In the midst of these sun-kissed summer days, the neighborhood kids gathered for their lively cycling expeditions, their destination a rendezvous at the serene lake. Billy, an unspoken leader among them, was their rallying point. He commanded a stature that matched his role, tall and robust. He drew everyone to his abode. Everyone, that is, except Joe. With a mop of unruly brown hair, oversized glasses perched on his nose, and braces adorning his teeth, Joe was far from fitting in with the others. Towered over and outshone by his peers, they had the privilege of donning the latest fashions, the trendiest sneakers, and the slickest gadgets, all courtesy of doting parents. For Joe, it was a different story. His mother, in her role as a housemaid, occasionally brought back clothes from her employer's households. The result? Attire that was either too loose, too snug, or just plain outdated. A fashion mismatch like this was social suicide in this neighborhood, a one-way ticket to exclusion from the ranks of the cool kids. "Why don't you just ask them if you can join in?" came a voice from the living room, the concerned voice of Eva, Joe's mother. As if they'd even entertained the idea, Joe mumbled under his breath. In truth, he had attempted it once, summoning up all his courage to time his exit just right, hoping Billy would extend an invitation. Instead, he was met with cutting remarks about his clothes, followed by a chorus of jeers from Billy's entourage. "Well, if you won't tag along with them, you might as well go as far as Miss Flenderson's house." "No farther," his mother directed, plucking an apple off the kitchen counter. "Hoop-de-doo," Joe replied with a sigh that betrayed his lack of enthusiasm. Since turning 13, his mother had somewhat loosened her reins, granting him permission to venture a bit farther from home. Still, his explorations were limited, hampered by the daunting downhill stretch that lay beyond Miss Flenderson's residence. You see, Joe had only recently acquired his very first bicycle, awe cry from the early age bike ownership of Billy and his posse. Thus, the notion of careening down a slope and cruising the road to the lake was a distant aspiration, not a current reality for Joe. "Since you seem so fixated on staring out that window, why not make yourself useful and fetch the mail?" his mother suggested, her teeth sinking into the juicy apple. "Fine, I'll do it," Joe replied. Rousing himself from his slouched position, he slipped on his slippers and headed outdoors. As he crossed the threshold, a sudden wave of heat enveloped him, as if stepping into an oven. Yet Joe scarcely had time to ruminate on the stifling weather. His attention was swiftly commandeered by the scene unfolding before him. Billy, Michael, and Molly were conspiring, packing Anne's backpack with an assortment of snacks. "I had to borrow some from my mom's stash, but she won't even notice. She's always buying in bulk," Billy explained, transferring an array of crisps into Anne's bag. "Yeah, my dad does the same thing with the Coca-Cola," Michael chimed in, helping himself to some of Anne's crisps. Look who decided to show up. "Hey, Joe, the weirdo, did you steal your mommy's dress?" taunted Billy, playfully nudging Anne. The four of them burst into laughter. Joe was donned in a bright pink shirt, so oversized that it draped loosely over his shoulders and cascaded down to his knees. Originally white, the shirt had transformed to pink after his mother accidentally left her scarf in the washing machine. There was no use clarifying that with Billy's crew. They were already preoccupied with retrieving their bicycles. "One day you'll be strong enough to get past Miss Flenderson's house," Michael grinned, his words carrying a sense of camaraderie. "Yeah, and on that day pigs will fly," Billy chimed in. With that, they breezed past Joe, their laughter trailing behind as they zoomed down the slope at breakneck speed. "Well, today is the day," Joe declared with newfound determination, clutching the letter so tightly that his knuckles turned pale. He deposited the mail on the couch, dashed up the stairs, and reached his cramped bedroom. His room was small, containing a single bed handed down from his grandfather, a clothes rack, a partially deconstructed desk, and a weathered wooden chair. At the room's far end, a sliding door led to a minuscule bathroom with basic facilities. Joe swiftly cleaned up, exchanging his pink shirt for his only remaining clean one, a short-sleeved polo shirt. This shirt held sentimental value. The first time he wore it, Chloe, the school's most popular girl, complimented him on it, turning his cheeks scarlet. Since then, it remained untouched on his clothing rack. "I don't know what the postman did, but the letters are all mangled," Joe's mother remarked as he re-entered the living room, her brow furrowed as she inspected the damaged mail. "If you see him down the street, remind him to be more cautious," she added, her gaze fixed on the electricity bill. "Sure thing," Joe mumbled, a pang of guilt for his unintended role in the mishap. He tied his shoes swiftly, rushed outside, and then paused at the doorway as Eva's voice echoed after him. "Miss Flenderson's house, remember?" She called out. "Not today," Joe whispered resolutely, his grip firm on his bicycle's handlebars. Today he was determined to pedal all the way down the slope to the lake. The sun blazed so fiercely that beads of sweat gathered on Joe's forehead. He began pedaling with a newfound confidence, the wind's cooling touch providing relief from the sweltering heat. As Miss Flenderson's house drew nearer, Joe hesitated, his fingers grazing the brake levers. His heart raced, but he didn't halt. He was resolute he was going to cycle all the way to the lake, defying any doubts. With the slope ahead, he leaned forward, ready to descend at exhilarating speed. A triumphant smile tugged at his lips, and for a brief moment, Joe closed his eyes, reveling in the thrill. Yet, just as swiftly his exhilaration soured. A car approached, its presence snapping Joe's eyes open. He reacted instinctively, veering sharply to the left. But his reflexes miscalculated. He ended up steering onto the wrong path, heading toward an abandoned farm. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Joe squeezed the brakes so abruptly that he was sent flying over the handlebars and into a thicket of bushes. Groaning but intact, he extricated himself from the underbrush, nursing scrapes on his elbows, back, and legs. However, his primary concern was his bicycle, which had weathered the ordeal.